Welcome to Already Cancelled, everyone. I am Pierre. That is Tara. We talk about TV shows here. The year is 2021, and the name of the show is Babylon 5. This is season 1, episode 21. It's called The Quality of Mercy. So full spoilers for the episode, as per usual. And I did predict there'd probably be at least one kind of weaker episode before the finale, and I think this is it. It's not a terrible episode. There's some things to like, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely a bit of it. After the last three, which were all like 9s or whatever, this was, a typical episode with some funny moments and stuff, some cool ideas. What did you make of it?
It was fine. I mean, we have like 3 storylines, and all of them are featuring characters that don't get a whole lot of screen time, with the exception of maybe Londo, and so it was good to get some background and more things with the ensemble cast.
Yeah,
I liked the episode fine.
Yeah, but it's not bad. So we have another exciting guest star. Well, 2 in fact. Actually, now I think about it, I was going to say Drake from Aliens is the exciting guest star. He plays a serial killer in this episode who's been caught killing a couple of security guards. So Bishop Brennan from Falaterra is back as the judge to sentence him. And he is sentenced to have his personality wiped when he's found guilty, which includes a psychic scan before the procedure to confirm that he's gone afterwards, so she can double check that he's actually left the building, as it were. And so we get into that plot with Talia, which is actually, I think, nice, because she did mention way back, like early episodes, that she once went into the mind of a serial killer and it was really messed up and she was still having nightmares from it. So I like that.
Yeah, I thought that was familiar.
I like that callback, so we'll get into that. And then the other guest star, the mother from Lost in Space, Tara tells me, I didn't recognise her, is here as a doctor lady, Dr. Rosen.
Yeah, June Lockhart. I watched a lot of Lost in Space. For some reason, the Sci-Fi Channel, when I first moved to the States, would play it all the time after school, so I just got into a space sitcom. I've never watched the Netflix version, but I enjoy it. It's fun to see her.
And the Netflix one's actually surprisingly good, to be honest.
I've heard. I'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, surprisingly all right.
I'm slow at TV.
I mean, we're doing Babylon 5 in 2021. I mean, I guess that tracks. We're up to date with 1994 TV.
I only watch 2 episodes of television a week. That's it. So those are the 2 main things. Is the Doctor plot with which also does have Franklin. We find out that he secretly goes down to the lower decks, the poor area of the station, and gives out essentially free medical care, because it turns out in Babylon 5, much like certain places on the Earth right now, healthcare is expensive and not everyone can afford it. So he's a good Doctor Samaritan, and he goes down and he's a doctor without Babylon 5 borders.
Yeah. And the episode actually, because there's not, what's funny about this is that this is one of the few episodes of the show where there's almost no Sinclair. He's only in a couple of quick scenes, really. And there's not a lot of Ivana either, although she is memorable in her 2 scenes. Because one of them's here at the start, where she comes down to see Franklin, and she's like, okay, she goes in and Franklin's there, and she basically grills him, because this is like an against the rules. It looks bad on the books if like there's funds going to these medical supplies that aren't actually being, funded properly, and blah 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 blah. And I think what I liked about this scene is that she starts off with a joke, because he doesn't realize it's her at first, and he says, "Oh, take off your clothes, and I'll be with you in a second." And she's like, "Oh, not unless you buy me dinner first." And he's like, "Oh, it's Ivanova." And then they have this conversation.
That is an odd thing for him to say without knowing who the patient is.
That's a little bit.
Like, most doctors will be like, what am I seeing you for, before they ask you to remove your clothes?
He's got to get to them quickly, so he'd rather just.
All right, get naked. Yeah, I'm just gonna diagnose everything.
But what I liked about this is it's almost like a subtle joke, but the scene actually does end with Ivanova starting to disrobe, just through a different reason. But because essentially she says, "Look, I'm not mad that you're doing this. I actually agree with what you're doing. I'm happy to overlook it. I break rules too, and we know this. She grows coffee. She calls her dying father. We've seen her break these little rules that are, they're morally okay. They're against the rules, but they're fine.
she's like, no, but just let me know about it and I can be in on it. If if we get caught later, I actually know what I'm defending myself against. And she's like, oh, and I can get it in the fun. And he's like, well, in that case, take off your jacket and wash up, and you can help. So I like that.
Yeah, it was a cute scene.
There's not much to it. The whole point of the scene really is A, to establish that he's down here doing this, and B, that he's actually, like, his patient numbers are going down.
Yeah.
Because that's the plot is that he goes to this quack, Dr. Rosen, who has got an alien device which she claims is magically healing people, and he doesn't believe her at first until later on he actually checks the records.
Yeah, he thinks it's just like a placebo effect, like a lot of quacks.
Yeah,
I guess.
And it does all sound
alternative medicines.
It does sound very dodgy, and she doesn't even seem to understand exactly what this device is or where it came from. She just sort of got it at like a flea market, and it seems to be doing something. But he also insults her in front of her daughter, who's clearly a love interest for him right from the first scene. Even though like there's nothing happens, really, like this is a love interest.
Even with that lipstick choice.
Do you know what? I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually agree. I had that thought immediately. As soon as she showed up, I was like, oh, I don't know about that lipstick choice. And I really have that thought. It's a bit strong, is all I'm saying. It's a bit strong. I'm not a fan of strong lipstick, I have to say.
I am on the right, set of lips, but she has small lips. You can't do dark colors with small lips. Just I can't either. It's my curse.
I couldn't diagnose what the problem was, but it looked a bit off to me. I concur. This has been your fashion and beauty portion of this week's Babylon 5. We should get a jingle for the little fashion segment. But
fashion.
The year is 2021, and the name of the fashion is something, I don't know. There's a joke to be had there, okay? I just don't know what it is. The year is 2021 and you're worth it. I don't know. Anyway, but obviously after he talks to the daughter for a bit, finds out that she was essentially, her medical license was taken from her because she got someone killed because she was addicted to stims, so she could like stay awake and do more surgeries and be a doctor longer per day and so on and so on. But this thing is actually working, and then very quickly he comes to realize that it's actually draining life from Dr. Rosen to give health to the person who's getting treatment. And it turns out she does know a little bit more about this. Maybe not how it works, but she knows what it was used for.
She has some background, which I thought was kind of interesting because she definitely said that the person she bought it from did not know how to use it or what it was for. Just so she seems to go in blind and then somehow gets information.
Well, I wonder if when she said that about the person she bought it from, because that was when she was lying about knowing anything. I wonder if that was just a lie.
Maybe.
Because that's in the scene where she claims to not know anything, and then later she does. So maybe she did get more information at the time. But she says it came from an alien race where this was a form of capital punishment. Is that, and again, thematically, I do like that this ties into the other side of the episode, which is dealing with a killer who's not quite being sentenced to death, but it's effectively the same thing if you really think about it.
Yeah, he's going to be basically not brain dead, but like he'll have his personality wiped, so he won't have anything that makes him him anymore.
Yeah, but it was basically they would take a complete life, like the person would be killed completely, and it would save someone who's terminally ill. That was kind of the what it was used for. But you can adjust it so it just takes a little bit of life and gives people a little bit of a fix, a little bit of a cure for something.
Help fix your cholesterol or something.
And that's what she's doing. And she's doing this because she's actually dying. She's got a disease, Lake syndrome, I think they called it.
Yeah, Lakes.
Is that a real thing?
I don't know.
I don't think it is, but then again, there's so many diseases that, if you told me this was a real thing, like, I wouldn't be surprised.
Would you like me to look it up?
We're good. I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters.
She describes it.
But, so he's very cautious, but he agrees to let her keep doing this as long as she gets checked up every week, and okay, fine. Like, this is something that you can sort of work on and we can do this. And that's kind of the whole plot on its own, because it still has something to offer, but it's more to do with the murder or plot, which is essentially Talia is terrified and doesn't want to do the brain scan. She's been in a serial killer's main before. There's some things here I liked about this. I like her having this moment before she does it, where she's just like putting on her pen and she's kind of like psyching herself up. No pun intended. But she I don't know. Given her
she's
that
got like
moment,
a kit that she pulls out with like she has to put on the special like stripe over her pin, and has, I don't know, special gloves. I'm not quite sure what's in the kit, but I like that she has like a mind wipe kit.
Yeah, and I do. He's a little cheesy, but I kind of like the performance of Colonial Marine Drake when he's like,
yeah, he's good. Like
he's a total psychopath in this. He's because which she goes into
got
his
that
head.
dead-eyed stare, you know.
Yeah, when she goes into his head, she sees like all these previous victims, and Garibaldi was convinced there was previous victims. They can't prove it or know about it for sure, but he's like, no, I can look into his eyes. He's a cold-hearted killer who's done this many a time, but he describes it. The killer describes it as building a symphony to play when he's ascending to heaven when he dies. And
I thought maybe it was like a symphony of voices that he can keep or something, but I guess it's supposed to be like a soul collection, not literally, but like in his head.
Because he when she pulls out, because it becomes too much to handle, as she's leaving the room, he says, "No, won't you stay? I'll save you a place for the symphony." It's a little cheesy, but I was kind of into
hammy.
it.
Yeah.
Well, but we've had worse.
Oh, definitely.
We've had worse. Remember the what was it? Jinx. Jinxo. Him?
No, I don't remember. Who is that?
The one who'd worked on all the previous stations but then took over for
yeah. Oof.
Yeah. Yes, see, exactly. Yes. So that's all fine. He's sentenced to have his brain wiped, but he makes a run for it. He damages one of the guards, and he gets shot himself, which leads to why he actually goes down to Dr. Rosen for help, because he needs to get medically treated. And he's got the daughter at gunpoint. Franklin realizes that he might have went down there, so he tells security, "Look, I'm going to go check something. If I'm not back in like 10 minutes, then send security after me, because I've probably run into some danger." So they have a bit of a standoff, and interestingly, Dr. Rosen turns out she can reverse the machine, and
yeah,
just like basically because the guy's threatening their daughter,
there's a switch.
She just flips the switch and steals all of his life and kills him, and inadvertently cures herself of her own disease, and she feels really guilty about this. So she's tried at the end, and she's told that it was self-defense. As long as you turn over the device to the medical staff and they can research it and look into it now, you're free to go. But she feels guilty because I'm a doctor and I killed someone, and now apparently I'm going to live for another 20 or 30 years, and I did that because I took someone's life. So she's going to go and try and redeem herself by being a doctor elsewhere.
The show really establishes that there is some sort of life essence or soul in people. Like, it's come up many times, because it doesn't seem, it's an alien device, so why should it work on humans unless there's some sort of universal soul thing that you can drain from anything that's sentient.
Well, that's interesting. Did you read it as a soul? I kind of read it more as just energy, like a person's life energy, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it could be that, but we've had, we have the Soul Hunter from before, and
oh yeah, I'm debating in this episode. I obviously don't argue that the idea of a spiritual soul has definitely been brought up multiple times. Yeah, the show's not afraid to go down that path.
No, I think it's interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I both of these plots were perfectly fine. I think the serial killer stuff was a bit more on the entertaining side, just because by its nature, it's it's a serial killer, and Garibaldi being so determined to, it's like, hey Doc, if something goes wrong with the machine and it hurts them badly, I don't mind.
And then of course we have the third plot, which is our comedy beat.
Yes, which does have
I'm sure you like more.
Which, I mean, look, Londo adds a lot to every plot he's in, okay? I'm just going to say that.
I like Laniar too, yeah.
No, I like Laniar too, and it is nice. And I love that way Garibaldi, when he's decided that he wants to use someone for something, and he'll do Laniar, my dear friend, it occurs to me that we've not spent much time together. And I'm like, come on. Come on, Londo. We know your game here.
Yeah.
But actually, probably one of my favourite laughs of this entire show so far might be... So he takes Lanier to the strip club because basically he's been told by his like the homeworld that he has to try and learn more about the other cultures and races, and he tries to like pretend to Lanier that he's doing him a favour by letting him see what Londo's like and seeing different parts of the ship. So he takes him to the strip club, and he
accidentally forgets his wallet.
And he's like, "Hey, give yourself a nice tip, dear. Lanier here is a very generous man," but he gets a couple of drinks, and Lanier's like, "Oh, there's no alcohol in this, right?" And he's like, "Oh, no, of course not." And he's like, "Oh, good, because with my species, if we get even the slightest hint of alcohol, we have violent, homicidal rages." And he's like, "Oh shit!" Like I this broke me. Like him describing what would happen if he actually had alcohol, and then Londo be like, "Oh, my mistake." I'll take that.
Just water for him, thank you.
I got a kick out of that. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it was funny.
Also, Lanier is a badass like karate fighter.
Yeah.
There's a spin kick. There's a spin kick later.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a spin kick, and then he's
it
got
makes
his
sense.
hands up.
They're sort of like monk-like.
Yeah,
you know? We expect them to have some sort of secret combat.
I think that's the best thing to describe. Actually, yeah, it's very monk-like. It's very like a Shaolin kind of, that kind of idea. Yeah. But because they start fighting Londo because he's caught cheating playing. Because that's the thing, Londo's getting bored hearing about Lanier's life, and because what was it started one of the sentences when it cuts to the scene. Lanier says something like, "In my 1150th year" or something like that at school. They've got like made up numbers and stuff. But I
really like Lanier. Like he has the same amount of enthusiasm for anything he's talking about.
Yes,
which is just like general interest. Like, this is interesting, but like everything is interesting, even the boring stuff.
Yes. Well, I'd say that he has general interest 90% of the time. There is kind of an uncomfortable fear when he's been pushed into something, and we see that in this episode too, when he's been forced to like deal with a stripper, and then he doesn't want to leave because it's like because Londo realizes that he's good at predictions and mathematics, and he's like, "Oh, so you can determine the odds of something? Then you're saying?" Like, yes, exactly. I've got a game for you. The Earthers call it poker, and takes him away. So we joked. It was back when he had the romantic episode. We talked about Londo's potential sex organ.
It was in the trivia because she had apparently in a scene that was cut. You could see like 6 holes on her back, which was meant to be like for the genitalia.
So she had six back vaginas, yes.
Yes.
Let's call them what they are. So during the poker game, Londo's cheating, and he cheats by he just unfastens a little button, and we see like I can only really describe it as a tentacle, really. Comes up and like grabs a card off the table, and eventually he's caught. I actually did get a lot of fun out of the moment because he's caught because one of the other guys places like the pitcher of ice on the end of his tentacle, and I kind of liked like he doesn't. Or sorry, Londo. He doesn't realize what it is at first. He's like, "Oh, is anyone else cold?" And that bizarrely felt very realistic to me. That he would get like a chill from it. It's kind of like if you put something cold on your wrist and it would cool down your body really quickly because it's sort of right on a vein. You know, he gets caught and the fight breaks out. Which also leads to a funny moment because again, there's not a whole lot of Garibaldi outside of a couple of scenes, but the one scene we get of Ivanova and Garibaldi is when they run into each other. And she's like, "Hey, did you hear your some of your security men broke up a fight in the gambling joint?"
Yeah, it's called Dark Star, which I guess is after the film.
I remember. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they're nerds and named it after that. But
yeah.
He's like, "Hey, did you go and see who the 2 culprits are yet?" He's like, "No," and the elevator door shuts, and you just hear him go, "What?" And then it cuts to Lanier and Londo just sitting there with bruises in their face, and Sinclair sort of asking why, and Lanier takes the fall and says, "It was me. I misunderstood something and caused an error, which caused offense and led to a fight." And he asked Londo about, what was he using to cheat, and he whispers something to him, and Lanier gets very scared and leaves. And then he picks up...
He says he wants to take a vow of silence about this.
And Londo, during this, picks up a statue. He's like, what, did you think these extra bits were just for show? And it is kind of like an old statue with like these tentacles coming out from the sides.
Yeah, she's like the god of fertility or passion or something. Yes. And it's like just a gold statue of a lady with 6 tentacles. And apparently it's just, she's the combination of both genitalia for the Centauri people. Which I did notice that sculpture because it's in like the opening scene. It's right in the background. Like, that's an interesting sculpture. I wonder if that's like the genitalia that we've heard about.
And wouldn't you believe it, by the end of the episode,
I did not expect that. Yeah, expect that to come back.
So,
yeah. We also get the return of the phrase "stroke off" in this episode, which
that's right. Yeah,
a funny move. A funny moment. Probably the biggest laugh for me.
Yeah, Drake, Colonial Marine Drake. I keep calling him that because that's what he's in Aliens. But at the start of the episode, when he gets his sentence, he just tells the judge to stroke off.
Any other words in your defense? Stroke off.
How does Centauri stroke off, as it were? That's a lot of things to handle.
Yeah,
he's only got
they
2
help
hands.
each other out. I don't know. They seem to have a lot of control.
So I'm just saying, it's a lot of things to handle.
I also, the opening scene with Londo in it. What does he say? There's a line with the person, the ambassador or not ambassador, whoever he's talking to on the other line.
Oh yeah, I noticed
another
this.
Centauri.
Yeah. I noticed this when I rewatched it because at the end of the scene he says something like, eat this, and he sort of smacks
and he
part of his
slaps
chest.
his like abdomen area. I'm like, that's interesting, but it makes more sense at the end.
Because we watched this on Wednesday, we had to push because there was internet issues, and I rewatched the episode, and watching it again, that moment at the start where he says, eat this, and he slaps his stomach, I went, oh, that makes more sense now. He's basically saying, suck his, whatever. Like, I get it. It makes sense.
Suck my tentacles.
Okay, all of a sudden, it makes so much sense. So obviously, we tend to favor Londo stories, right? But bizarrely, I actually think because this offered something for the Centauri and it gave us this friendship between Londo and Laniar, I actually think
Lanier's super likable too. Yeah. Like he's fun to watch.
I think this gave us something for both of those characters that this may actually bizarrely given us more for the mythology of the show over the other plots, even though they were the more serious ones that had actual stakes and drama and stuff to them.
I mean, Franklin gets the machine at the end.
He does, and he talks about how if they can make this work properly, people may be able to donate a little bit of life the way that people used to donate blood before they could synthesize it. And I thought that was a neat comparison. I was like, that's cool. Yeah.
Or it might get him out of a bind, like if someone dies or something.
Yeah. I do like the idea that it can potentially save someone who's fatally dying, fatally wounded, but to save someone who's that close to death, it would take a whole life. So someone would have to sacrifice themselves entirely to do it.
Right. Or maybe if you just collect a little bit from everyone.
Oh, that'd be sweet. Like everyone in the station has to volunteer a little bit to save someone. I mean, that's if it comes back. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But
I don't know. They've collected a lot of artifacts over this first season. They have the guy on the planet now, and they have the organic ship technology thing from the early on in the season.
Yeah, I remember that. That was Franklin's
the parasite one.
Old buddy brought that on board, right?
Yeah, and that was used. I think that was sent back to Earth Force or something to do work on it. But I think I heard that comes back. I think someone said in the comments that it was going to come back in some way.
Okay. All right.
Like the technology will be used. Maybe not. Maybe I dreamed. Maybe it's something I dreamed.
It sounds plausible enough. But interesting. There's also maybe a little bit of the bureaucracy here as well, is the idea that, okay, we can't give the death sentence for this, but Earth won't pay to ship him off anywhere or even accept him in a prison, so they're basically left with this mind thing being the only option.
Right,
so
their rehabilitation for criminals is just taking away the personality. I think that is pretty interesting and, morally questionable.
It is kind of interesting because the judge phrases it as, you will be like, you'll contribute to society, but in a way that, unlike, say, an actual criminal who's like giving community service, for example, this would be something where they're essentially mind wiped and then just given the role of, oh, this is what you do. And like, so the question I would have is, like, do they then develop a personality and then will grow into a real person again over time, with a fake backstory? Or
like, is this better, or is there no rehabilitation at all? And because you take that away, like, they'll just end up being the same person eventually.
Or are they just kind of a zombie who just does, like, let's say he's told that he's now going to, like, clean the ship, for example, right?
Yeah.
And that's all he does. Does he just do like a zombie, eats enough to survive, and then there's no personality? Is he just a drone at that point?
Right, yeah. Yeah, I think that is interesting, actually. It kind of has some Clockwork Orange vibes.
Yeah.
What do we do with our criminals that are hard to deal with?
And to be fair, there's a line from Franklin when he's setting up the machine and he's talking to Garibaldi. Franklin kind of says that. He says, "Do you think this is right?" And Garibaldi says it's the law. He's like, "That's not why I asked." So one of our characters does vocalize that this is a bit inhumane, this punishment. So that's interesting as well, that this is kind of in there. So, no. So I mean, I'll give it to it. Even what I would describe as a lesser episode does have some little nuggets of things to.
Yeah, I don't even think it's like a lesser episode. I mean, I know we're coming off of some heavy hitters, but still, I thought it was pretty decent. Like, I enjoyed I enjoyed the 3 separate storylines.
I guess the bar's just been raised a little bit. Because this is not the boxing episode, okay? It's not even close to that. I've just, the bar's been raised a little bit in the last few. So.
Yeah, I suppose.
This is season 2 of Buffy, the hit television show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You have like this batch of great episodes, and then there's like Go Fish right before the 2-part epic finale, and it's like just a shitty episode like right before the finale. It's like this is better than that. This doesn't have Wentworth Miller pretending he can act. So, yes.
How interesting.
Oh yeah, I'm Buffy. Oh, and there's one final thing to mention before I do the outro, which is when Londo and Laniar are getting into trouble at the end from Sinclair. He insists they pay for the damages, but he says that under diplomatic protection they can't. So I just wanted to point out that Londo and Laniar have diplomatic immunity.
That doesn't mean anything to me.
Go watch Lethal Weapon 2, Tara. Come on.
I have seen those. I have seen the Lethal Weapon films.
Do you know what? I actually said that. I think it's not out yet, but there was the next Patreon 6 Feet Under review. I actually somehow it came up and I said, you know what? There's going to be a diplomatic immunity on the next Babylon 5, and I've never hit Tara with one, and it's going to happen, and I was all excited. It's something. Yeah. It's not used as often as the Buffy thing, but when it comes up, when someone mentions diplomatic immunity or rephrases it like it was in this episode, you better believe. Diplomatic immunity. Okay.
Well, I hope that the fans like that.
Look, Connor hates it. He gets annoyed every time I do it, so maybe it's more fun. But you will, I'm sure, love to grow to cherish it.
Sure, yeah.
Over time. But that is us. So thank you for joining us. You may let us know what you thought of this episode of Babylon 5 in the comments below. And look forward to the finale next time. Like and subscribe, that's super important on YouTube. It helps us find more people. And of course, with the show just hitting HBO Max, there's a whole new host of people that might want to like watch along and have a place to see it now. So
I was thinking that, yeah. It's on the opening page too when you open up the app. Like, ooh. Look at what's new, Babylon 5.
The only thing I'll critique, and this is not just on HBO Max, this is on Amazon, it's on Apple, because they're all claiming this is HD now, this new version they've got up. And it isn't. I mean, it might be encoded as HD, but it's not HD. This isn't Star Trek: The Next Generation that got the beautiful HD remaster where it's taken from the original film.
Glorious, yeah.
And it looks beautiful. This is not that. This is still clearly taken.
Even the Twilight Zones that we watch are like super nice looking now.
They were all restored from the original 35mm film. Babylon 5 has not had that treatment yet. Hopefully one day it does. The sticking point is that the effects would all have to be redone and Warner Bros. Don't want to pay for it. But so it does look better than it did before, but it's not actually HD. But they all say HD at the top, and they're claiming it's HD, and they're lying. So I'm not having it. But hey, there you go. Tara will tell you about Patreon now.
Yeah, if you enjoy the reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV. And if you donate as little as $1 per month, you'll get bonus episodes for other shows we do. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these Babylon 5 reviews 1 week early. So please head over and check that out. Thank you.
You can also catch us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Babylon 5. Just don't give away the home world.